Building a 40-foot by 120-foot greenhouse. First step is unloading. We ended up using 2 forklifts for this. Some of these pieces were well over 2,500 pounds, but you can also do this by hand. This was the heavier of the pieces. We had to drive these completely across the farm to our build site. This step was definitely the hardest of all. Each one of these took us about probably 30 minutes to sometimes an hour. This end ended up being sandier, so we were able to just sledgehammer them in. But you have to keep them perfectly level for the arches to line up to them. When we got down the other end, it was rocky, so we ended up using an auger to clean out the hole and then place the anchors in place. The anchors themselves go down about 3 feet into the soil. We added water thinking it would help. I don't think it had any kind of improvement to the process. And then they're spaced out about 4 feet on center. These arches came in 3 pieces, so fully assembled they're 40 feet wide, about 22 feet tall I think. But then we carried them over to the anchors, and we unfortunately had to carry them over our existing greenhouse because we still had plant material going on in there. So it was quite the task. We should have had probably more people and maybe a lift to help out, but we got it done. Adding the curved braces. There's 2 sets of these on each side. These just connect all the arches together, and then we just torque down the bolts at the bottom, the connection point of the arch and the anchor. Adding the 2x8 baseboard, the length of the whole greenhouse on both sides. We ended up using a U bracket that just bolts through the arch itself, and then the other side bolts through the wood. Installing the ridge tube. These connect at the top of each arch, so basically every 4 feet, and we just torque them down. Placing the 500-gallon propane tank. This will feed the heating system for the greenhouse. We had a tank here before, but it was about 35 years old, so we ended up just getting rid of it and replacing it with a brand new one. Then you have to dig the trenches to all of your greenhouses for the gas lines. These are the vent arms that open up the roof to this greenhouse. The whole right side opens up vertically about 4 feet. That's our ventilation system. Heat rises, so it goes out the top. We finally ended up renting a lift for this. It saved so much time. We didn't have much help at this point of the project, so I kind of had to do most of it myself. That's where the lift helped me out a lot. Kind of watch the other end as you tighten it. You don't want to have it fall off the ledge because then it will swing down. We're framing the end wall now with these steel studs. These dig down into the ground about 2 feet. We also framed out the end door, which lined up with our gate, which is off to the right of the screen here that you can't see. This whole process took us about 6 hours. Covering with double poly. This was extremely hard for us to do just because the greenhouse was so high itself. Next time around, we're definitely going to put it up on the nifty lift and pull the plastic along the ridge tube, and then pull it down from the top of the greenhouse. That would have saved us so much time, but lessons learned. We had perfect weather today for covering this house. There was no wind and it was about 55 degrees. Anytime you cover a greenhouse, you usually want it between 45 and 70. With definitely no wind. Wind can just add so much aggravation to the process, especially where we're doing 2 layers here. It just would have been so much harder if the wind was moving it around. At the top here, we're fastening it down, and then on the bottom, with the ladder, we are using a wiggle wire to fasten it to the greenhouse, and then another set of wiggle wire at the very ground itself. Fastening the plastic to the end wall, you just pull both pieces of plastic taut and then fasten it using wiggle wire. Basically just make it nice and neat, cut the plastic with about 3 to 4 inches sticking out, and that's it. Finally, we got the greenhouse done. This video was taken in November, so we just completed it at the end of the season. Some tips and notes that we figured out along the way would be to definitely rent a lift. We used a nifty lift. It saved so much time. I could not say enough about it. It just sped up the process putting all the mechanical parts together on the ridge vent. So much easier. Another one would be, pull the plastic from the top of the greenhouse at the ridge tube and then pull it down from the ridge tube. The plastic itself weighs about 300 pounds. It was really hard to get it up from the ground. So I think next time around we'll definitely be doing it from the top. Another note would be do it when the weather is between 45 and 70 degrees. Definitely no wind. Even the smallest piece of plastic blows around in the wind. So if there's zero wind, it's so much easier. We ended up starting this greenhouse in June and finished it in November, just because we had other projects going on the farm. Altogether, it probably would have took us about 2 weeks if we worked on it straight through. This greenhouse has double poly on it, so we used an inflation kit to pump air in between the 2 layers. This creates a dead air space and reduces heat loss in the winter months. Much better system versus a single layer poly. Sorry I didn't get any control in roof vent video. The project just took so much longer than expected. I just spaced out on getting video of that. To make the project easier, we should have used an auger for all of those anchors in the ground. We had a lot of rocks up the back end of this house, so the auger just tore those right out, and then we placed the anchor in place and then backfilled it. This greenhouse has 250,000 BTU heaters. That keeps the climate in here perfect, even in the middle of the winter. Totally fine. It is an Harnois greenhouse. It's 40 feet wide by 120 feet long.
I hope you like this video, so don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you have questions, leave them in the comments. And I hope you have a good day.